It's cherry blossom season, and we're going to be doing this painting here. It's an easy, simple painting. If you've never painted before, this is for you. It's my 7-step process to painting with acrylics for beginners. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over the supplies for this class. So today I'm using an artist loft canvas from michaels.com. Any canvas will work. Frederick's, anything that you have will work. This is a wraparound, a frame canvas, and it's 9 by 12. 8 by 10 will work. 5 by 7 will work. 11 by 14 will work. Just what you have. Don't go out and go get stuff. This will be taped, and you'll be able to do this later if you don't have the supplies, so you can watch now if you'd like, and then paint it later. So you could also use a canvas board or a canvas pad. It's entirely up to you. And the next thing I want to go over is paint. Today I'm going to be using Grumbacher paint. Grumbacher has several sets for beginners. One of the ones, more recent ones they came out with was this acrylic mixing set. I'll put it right up here so you can see it really well. This mixing set comes with colors that you'd have in a printer. So it makes all the colors you need for any piece of art you'd like to do. The only difference is instead of like cadmium medium red, you're going to just get the Grumbacher red. And then in addition, you're going to get a magenta, which usually doesn't come in their other sets. And the magenta is where we're going to get these real nice pinks for our blossoms. So if you do not have Grumbacher and you want something comparable, any of the heavy-bodied acrylics will work. And in addition to that, I do want to say that this one would also work fine with the craft paints that Michaels has or any craft store has. This works great for this painting as well. So use what you have for now when you're beginning. It's good to experiment with a lot of different types of paint before you find out what you really like. I like to use coupons and get things on sale. So I have a lot of different paints. I'm not real particular about my paint, but I do know that heavy-bodied paints, if you can get a hold of those are a lot better. So I have a paper plate that I'm putting all my paints on, and you can see the heavy body doesn't drip. If you go into the craft paints, they're going to be more liquidy, and so you won't be able to or you won't have to put as much water with them to get them to move on the canvas. So that's another difference. These heavy-bodied acrylics in the set, they do cover a lot better. You may need 2 coats a lot of times with craft paint, but just get to know whatever paint you're using, get to know it really well so you know how to work with it to achieve the results you want. The brushes I'm going to use are very, very inexpensive artist loft brushes. Again, you can get them from Michaels or their store or online. So I'm going to use a 3/4 flat. It's a large brush. I'll put it over here so you can see it. Put it up there. It's just a really nice one for the background. Then one of my favorite brushes is a filbert brush. It looks like a fingernail. Here it is here. I think you can see it there. It kind of looks like a fingernail. It's a flat brush, and the corners are rounded. And that's a very versatile brush, and it works great for the petals on the flowers. So that's what we use for that. And then I'd also like you to have some kind of round brush. I have a number 3, again, artist loft brush. It comes in the I think it's $5 or $6 set of brushes. You can get the first one and the last one I mentioned. The filbert you may have to buy separate. Sometimes those don't come in a set. I'm not sure why. It's my favorite brush, but sometimes it doesn't come in the set. Now, if you don't have a number 2, a number 3 or 4 would also work for the filbert. And then on the round, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever you're comfortable with will work. The bigger the brush, probably the looser the design. This is fairly loose, but we will do some detailing in the middle of the flower with the smaller brush. So let's go over the other things we'll need. Paper towels are nice to have. One of them in moistened with a little water is good, just in case you need to take off some paint. That's nice to have, so have that handy. Also have 2 vats of water. You'll want one vat of water or a container of water you'll want for your dirty water. Your brush, every time you want to change color or clean your brush, you're going to go in the dirty water first, get it completely cleaned, and then you're going to want another jar of what I call clean water, and that is water that you'll use to moisten your paints with, and also the last cleaning on your brush. So when you clean your brush to move to a different color, you're going to put it in your dirty water, clean it all up, blot it, clean it up some more until there's no color in it, and then go into your clean water and do it again. Make sure that brush is super clean. Otherwise, the dirty water may change the colors you're using. So that's how I do it. And I actually have a vat of water that has two areas, one for clean and one for dirty. Another thing to have handy is for sketching this out, a piece of chalk. You could use a sidewalk chalk or a chalk pencil. That would work too. Make certain that if you do get a chalk pencil, a white pencil, that you do not accidentally get an oil pencil. An oil pencil will not work. The acrylics will not stick to oil. All right, next we're gonna, to speed up the drying process, I have this is a 30-year-old hair dryer handy. So have that handy, that speeds up the drying process. With the canvas, you wanna make certain that it is covered with primer, either gessoed or a couple coats of primer. Usually they're already done like that if you bought it at a craft store. But if it looks off-white at all, like the color on the back, you'll wanna make sure to put a couple coats of gesso. Gesso. It's a chalky white paint primer to get your canvas ready for paint. Sometimes I just use leftover white house paint would work. That would be fine too, but gesso is what they usually do for painting. So that you're ready to go. My first step in my 7-step process is to underpaint your background. Now, this is optional. You do not have to underpaint, but the reason I underpaint with a warm color is because, and this is my color of choice for today, is because a lot of this painting is cool colors, and this will give a nice complement to those cool colors in the background. So if any of this color shows through, it's going to look really nice. These are opposite on the color wheel. Any colors that are opposite on the color wheel will look great together. So you can see this blue green over here, you get the red orange. So I've underpainted my canvas because this will show through in the flowers and warm them up, but also in the background, it's a nice complementary color. So depending on how loose you paint, some of this color will show through a lot. And on this one, not so much, maybe on the one I did here, but maybe today I'll be looser, we'll see. But that's what I usually do to start with. It also gives you a medium value to be able to gauge your lights and your darks better. When you just have white, colors can look very different on white than they do on a medium value. Value is how light or dark the color is. So I'm going to go ahead and through the power of doing things ahead of time, I've got it already underpainted. And if you're painting along with me, just go ahead and take your biggest brush, mix your Grumbacher red and your yellow. It should be in this particular set, process yellow, or if you had cadmium yellow, that'll work too. Mix those two together, you'll get a nice orange, and put that all over your canvas. I actually really like the sides painted as well, so remember to paint the sides if you like that look. I like to wrap it all the way around. It gives me more options when I'm framing it. All right, so let's get started. As soon as you've underpainted it and it's completely dry, you can start with the next step, which is the background. Now, sometimes I sketch it out first and then put the background. It's unnecessary for this one because the subject is very easy for us to do freehand. On more intricate paintings, I oftentimes will switch these two steps and I'll go ahead and trace or transfer my design first and then do the background around it. So those can be, these next two steps can be interchanged. So let's start with our background. Go ahead and dip your water, your largest brush, 3/4 flat, in water. Go into a little white and a little of the, excuse me, processed cyan, which is, if you don't have processed cyan, it's okay to use like cerulean or a color like that. So go ahead and completely cover in crisscross way your background. We're going to do 2 layers. So let's get that on there. You could actually use a larger brush if you like that better, but this one will work for me. I like to paint. I like the feel of the brush on the canvas. I like the sound of it. I like everything about it. But I've painted for a long time and I just never get tired of it. So let's get this done. I think the best part for me, I like the process, but the best part for me is to see what happens after I'm done. I always have this picture in my head of what it's going to look like. And then I remember the picture that's in my head. And when I'm finished, I think back on that and think, well, how close did I get that to my original idea? How close did that come to my original plan? Sometimes it comes out better, which is really rare. But sometimes it comes, it's real close to what I thought. And then, well, probably most of the time, it doesn't quite make it. Now, that's okay because I'm learning and growing as an artist. And I feel like once I have more paintings that are turning out than not turning out, that it'll slow my growth. So it's okay. All right, now we're going to use a wet on wet technique. This is wet. I'm going to dip it in the, again, I need a little more white, so I'm going to squish out a little more white first. This is called a mixing white, but titanium white will work too. Don't get caught up in too much of the particulars as far as exactly, if you want exact same results, you're going to get super close by using the same paint as me, but we're still going to see things different. We're still going to use different strokes because we're different people. So don't get too caught up in exactly using the exact same brushes or exact same colors. The best thing to do is experiment and enjoy the whole process and not get too worked up. Okay, so I'm mixing a little bit more white in, and I'm going to kind of make this sort of ombre. So I'm going to get some more lights in here as if this is, and I could add even, I think in this one too, I added a little tiny bit of yellow to, let me show you, to get it into the green side. So that really pretty, oops, a little red got in there, that's okay. That's pretty. So let's go in there and show you how that happens. You can see all the beautiful colors that are happening. Oops, there we go. And I'm just gonna crisscross it. We're gonna do several layers. And I'm gonna do some over here too of the, let me get a little more white in there. You can see me mixing that up. Pretty messy painter. Let's get that on there. Crisscross motions, make it very loose and show the brush strokes. Okay, and so this is called wet on wet. We're painting very quickly so that it can mix on the canvas. So let's get this a little lighter here. Leaving this area here darker. We could even purposefully go into a little of ultramarine blue. We could just very easily go into a little bit of that and put that into the middle portion. All right, now a little bit of white, and I haven't even cleaned out my brush. A little more white here, a lot more white here. Going into this area here, making those values. So I've got my light value here, a medium value here, and a darker value here. Remember, the value is how light or dark the color is. So I'm just going to put a little more white in there. Kind of move it around as if the wind is blowing. That's pretty, isn't it? It's a little different than here, different day. For me as a painter, it's going to be a little different. Let's get a little more light in there. Yeah, that's a lot darker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry it up and put my next layer on, and that will get it as light as this one, and then we'll move on to the next step. And I'm going to get into a little bit more of the mixing white. Got a lot of it there now. Just going to try to get it as light as the other one. I need a little bit more yellow in there to get this into more of the green color. On the monitor, it doesn't look as green up here as it does in life, but that's how you get that greenish color, is using that. See how it turns green? When you put just a tiny corner of yellow in there. A little more white. And your choice how much yellow you want to put in it. That really warms up the sun, or the background a bit more. Keep it loose. That will give you the feeling of the sun shining over on this side. And you can lay it on pretty thick at this point. We'll dry it up after we get the background on. So you can lay it in pretty thick. And get some more big in there. And we'll put more white in a moment. I like to layer. It gives it the painting more depth, perspective. So it won't be as flat. Now this is a good place if you have a palette knife handy. Sometimes it's fun to add some of those type techniques too. And we're not working as much wet on wet. You can hear the brush on the canvas. That's more of a dry canvas technique. And that gives you a kind of a softer look. And I'm just blending with a crisscross motion, make it softer. But if you do like texture, here's a good place to put in some texture with a palette knife. And I'll show you up close. I didn't use it so much in here, but I want to give you that as an option. It's just a nice place to put these really neat paint strokes and marks. They give the painting a really neat look that you're not going to get, with photo art or any other kind of art. This is painting, so using beautiful strokes like this. And I'm going to go into some lighter colors. There we go. Just to give it some more painterly look. I think on here on the monitor, I can see, I have the advantage of looking into the monitor and being able to see kind of in a different way. When oftentimes if you're just looking at your art, you're seeing it in one way. But when you look at it in a monitor or the mirror, you see it in an entirely different way. So I've got the advantage of seeing it in the monitor, being able to see where I need, more color. I'm going to go into a little ultramarine blue. I'm going to mix it around with my cyan blue. Get some of that in here. So that gives you an interesting background. A little different than the first one I came up with, but I just want to give you other options, fun things to do with your painting. All right, now let's give that a very good, make sure your brushes are in the water for this part. Go ahead and give this a very good dry with your blow dryer, and we'll go ahead and start the blossoms. Okay, I wasn't super heavy-handed, so my paint is pretty much dry on top. Now I realize that in some areas where it is thicker, it may only be dry on the surface. So I have to be very careful not to accidentally pull off the surface dry part and expose that wet part. Part of it could be dry and part of it could be wet. And then those two, you'll actually start taking paint off instead of putting paint on, and you'll have a mess on your hands. So don't be too worried about that, because you can work with that and just make it into a textural part. But rather than have to work with it or start over, try to avoid it by getting it either completely dry or being very careful in the parts that are thicker. So right now, let's go ahead and lightly sketch where we want our branch. Now, because I've chosen a branch, an organic subject, it won't really matter that much if it doesn't look exactly like mine, because there's so many branches out there. Not every branch is the same, so not every painting will be the same either, and that's a good thing. It doesn't have to be exact. So I'm going to go ahead and start on the edge and just kind of copy what I've done here. I've come down and almost cut the painting in half diagonally, and then I've got a couple other branches coming off of it. So I'm going to kind of do something similar with this one. I'm going to come on down here and then go right off the page or the canvas and go right out there. And then right here, I'm going to come up into this zone. And then here, I'm going to come out here with 2 branches. And then there's other little ones that have buds. See the little buds here? They haven't quite opened up, so we're going to put those in there too. And there's some buds here, here, here. This is all buds here. Nothing's opened up there. And then there's lots of flowers here, here, and there. There'll be a lot of flowers in that area. And this one, I'll put more down there. Now, the reason I use chalk is because if there is any residue that doesn't get covered with paint, at the very end, when your painting is completely dry, you'll be able to take a moist, lint-free cloth and wipe off all the chalk. All right, now we've got our branch, and I like to paint from darks to lights. So our next step after we've sketched it, step 4 would be to start with our darks, and we're going to need a dark brown. So what I like to do to make a dark brown is I like to mix my 3 primaries, and in this case it'd be ultramarine, magenta, and yellow will make a brown. So let's go ahead and dip the filbert brush in water and make that brown. So I'm going to start with a little blue, a little magenta. Makes me a really nice dark color. You could even just use that dark color if you wanted. And then I'm going to take a little bit of yellow and get it in there and make a dark, kind of a raw umber brownish color. Okay, and you can even tap in a little bit of Grumbacher red. Just get a dark, dark brown. So that looks like a pretty dark brown. And then I'm going to go ahead and follow. The sun is coming from this direction, so I want my branch to be darker on the bottom and a little lighter on top. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the dark value, and then I'm going to move up to the light value on every part of the painting. So you saw that I got into the dark and then did the little medium and then ended with more of the light, kind of went back and forth on that area. Well, now I'm going to do the branch and kind of start with the dark here. And what's nice about this, it doesn't have to be completely straight. It can be organic. You can wiggle on this and it's going to look better because it's a branch. So if you're wiggly, no problem. So let's get that on there. Just follow your chalk line. It may take a couple coats. I'm going to head on up here, taper it. Now I'm going to head down here. And I kind of like those areas that are a little more bumpy. Come right down here and go right off my canvas over there. Okay, now I'm going to thicken it up a bit over here. So if you do want it to look real, the branches, they come out from the tree thick, and then they go down to the very point of them is tapered. So to taper it, you'll want to come up off your brush lightly. So let's try another one. So over in here, I'm going to come down here, and then I'm going to come off the brush, and it's going to taper. Here, there's a branch. Here, taper, and then connect it a little bit there. Branches are very forgiving. I like that you don't have to be completely straight. And then it actually looks better when it's wavy. All right, now let's put a couple buds there. That's just a matter of kind of a teardrop shape that's tapered. press and then kind of pull. This one has a little bit of a stem on it, and then it's press and pull. This one too has a little stem. There we go. There's another one right in there. So those are buds. There's one on the end too, right there. There we go. All right. A little different than before, but that's all right. All right. And then we've got a little bit of another branch started here, right there. And that has a nice bud on it that's a little bit more open. So we're going to open that up and do 2 of these on either side. And we'll do the same thing here. There we go. And there's something there. There we go. All right, there's something down here. And there's a few things here. So I'm putting all the dark in all at once. There's something here. So I'm just following my design up here. Got a few branches up here. Some of this will get covered with the flowers. And because acrylics are opaque, you can't see through them very much. It won't matter what's underneath. So I'm just going to put what shows. If I go a little bit bigger, I'll just cover it with the flowers. There might be a branch there. This is just going to establish where I want most of my flowers. There's a couple little things on the trunk there. There we go. And now for the lighter color. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm not even going to rinse out this brush because the next colors are going to be a little bit of red, the Grumbacher red, and a little bit of the yellow. It's going to make a medium brown. Can you see that happening? Medium brown. Notice how I'm not going immediately into white because it's better to lighten up your colors with colors at first and then add white later. I always add white towards the end rather than at this middle stage. So this is a bridge color. It's going to get me from my darkest color here to the lightest color on top. So 3 values will give you a wonderful 3D effect. Dark, medium, and light. So I'm making my medium. I'm just going to keep on adding yellow until I get it pretty light. See how it's getting lighter? I used to lighten everything with white, but what happens with that is it makes your art look flat. So try to lighten up as much as you possibly can with colors first. See how it's getting very light? It's dark, medium, and light. I'm going to go ahead and use this as my medium color. I even want to go into a little more red. There we go. That's a really nice brown color. So now I'm going to use that as my medium, and I'm not going to cover darks, but I'm going to pay attention to where I think that sun is making it lighter. I'm going ahead and add that to the lighter side of my branch. So just on one side. It's just lightening it a bit, just slightly. We'll do more in a moment. So the light's hitting it here. I'm going to go ahead and get all those spaces where the light would hit it lighter. This whole branch might be lighter. And my dark is still wet, so it's actually mixing a little bit with the dark and making another medium color. I really like that. And again, I don't know if you noticed this, but I'm not really using my wrist like this, like drawing. I'm using my arm. That's giving me long, nice strokes. I have more control that way, actually. Okay, so that's a little bit lighter. I'll put it up a little bit more so you can see it better. There you go. You can see how it's getting lighter. And now let's go ahead and make a lighter color. So we did dark, medium, and now we're going to go ahead and lighten it up with a little more yellow. See how that's lightening it up yet more? And now I'll pull in a little bit of white. And that will get it right into that zone there. So let's go ahead and put that on there. And look at how it makes that branch immediately look 3D. I need a little bit more white. I'm just kind of tickling the brush down here to get that lightened up. Now, if you like it blended, go ahead and work with it. It's entirely up to you. That's a style thing. It doesn't need to be blended because your eye will actually blend it when it views it. So right now they are separated almost like a color by number. But if you like it more blended, just get in there and just blend it more. Just work with it a little bit more so it has the blending that you like. That's just, as an artist, you choose how much blending you like. Lastly is the highlight. That's when I add a bit more white. You can see that here. And then I really go in there and just highlight some areas where that, and then it really bumps up. This is a nice bright day. So that's, if it was an overcast day, you probably wouldn't need that much light, but it's a nice bright day. So we're gonna tap it where we think that sun might be hitting, and that is really making it stand out. And again, that's just a personal choice, however bright you want to make it. I like to give you options so your style comes through. All right, so your branch should look very 3D now. We can always do a little more later. If we want to, in the detail stage, we can always add a little more refinement if we want. But I really like this painterly look. So let's move on to the blossoms now. I'm going to go ahead and wash that brush out very, very thoroughly, blot it on a towel. So now going over to the magenta, we're going to go ahead and make that beautiful pink color. So I got a little magenta here, and I'm going to mix in some white. This has a little blue in it, but that's okay. And I'm going to get that beautiful magenta color, or that pink. And there's a little purple in there back there. So that is a little bit of the, ultramarine mixed with the magenta. So that's the first color I'm going to put down. I'm going to put in some blossoms here in the dark. And I'm just tapping, I'm letting the brush do the work. I'm just tapping where I want the darker blossoms in the way a blossom would grow. So 5 petals, and just let the brush be the petal. So just tap and pull in the direction you want the flower to be. Like that. So using a little bit of ultramarine and magenta for this purpley color. So I want a little bit there, and there's some there. Back here, there's a blossom in shadow there. There's some blossoms here. And I'm just tapping and kind of pulling. Close to the branch. This one's behind the branch. These are a little darker because they're buds. They haven't come out fully. So there's a lot of dark in there. Just tapping and pulling. These are a little bigger, more developed buds. This is dark inside. Maybe a few petals over here are dark. This one doesn't have any flowers. All right, it doesn't look very good at this stage, but we do need to establish our darks before we put our lights on. So remember, just like we did the branch, darks, mediums, and lights to give it that 3D look, we're going to do the same thing with the flowers. We've started with the darkest color, ultramarine blue and magenta, and now we're moving into the lighter color by adding white. If you wanted to change the color up a bit too, you could add a little bit of white and yellow, and I'll show you the difference between those. So just a little bit of yellow will warm up the pink, maybe a little red, and then white, and then you've got a little warmer color to use. So that makes it warmer. So that's entirely up to you, but just adding white would do the trick. I'm going to completely wash out my brush because I just put that color down, and I want to go back to the magenta. So back to magenta, and then I got to squish out a little more white. I use a lot of white on this one. So I'm going to squish out a little more white. I'm going to mix that white. This is going to be my medium color. Got my darks. Now I'm going to do a medium color. That's right in here. Over the top of what I have, I'm going to go ahead and add some more blossoms. 5 petals. I'm overlapping them because that's what happens on a branch. You'll see some behind it and you'll see some in front. And the other thing I do each time I come up in value, I also use my paint more liberally. So as I come up in value, there'll be thicker areas of paint. That's just another style thing. Now, do you see it starting to look more 3D? These buds may not need a highlight. There we go. This one sort of has one there. It's kind of opening up there. Here's another one there. Here's another flower here. If you like that warmer color, be putting it in at this stage. I'm going to go into a little more white. I haven't washed my brush out. This is just another of the bridge color. That's my step 5. This is a bridge color. So it's a color getting me from my dark to my light. And I've got a flower here, big beautiful flower there. Going right over the branch will give it a very 3D look. There we go. Just tapping and pulling right over the top. Remember, the sun's coming from here. Just about there. Add a little more white. Oops, I got a little blue in there, no worries. I can just go right over the top with a little petal. All right, while it's still wet, let's get that lighter value in. This is step 6. So remember, the step 4, 5, and 6 are my bridge colors. So I want to go from my dark to my medium to my light. So we're at the medium stage. Now let's do the light color. So adding a little bit more white to that color I already have. A little more white. Here's where you could also tap in a little yellow if you want to warm it up a bit. So now I've got it a bit lighter, maybe a little bit lighter. I'll test it on here and see if it's light enough. That seems light enough. So now I'm just doing petals. I'm not completely covering what I had already. I'm just adding to it. That's going to give a very nice translucent look to it. Tap, tap, tap. Oh, I got a little blue in there. That's okay. Let's go over the top with that. That's pretty, actually. Let's work with it. A little more white. I'm going to make sort of a lavender because I accidentally got some blue in there, but I really like it, so I'm just going to keep on going with that. There's a lighter flower here I need to put in. There's a couple highlights on these buds. This one's really catching some light there. Maybe this is in the light back behind there. You choose. I've got a little more flowers going on the second one. I'm getting a little carried away, but I'm having a good time. I hope you're enjoying this too. All right, let's put the centers in. This is where your detail brush comes in handy. So I'm going to go into, remember when I made that dark color for the branch? I'm going to go ahead and do that again with my detail brush. So I'm going to go into the ultramarine, little magenta. That's going to give me a very dark purple. That would be okay just to use that color, but I'm also going to add a little bit of red. I'm going to get it to where I can use that little point. I'm going to go into the middle of some of these flowers that might be opening towards me, and I'm going to go ahead and put in that dark part right there. And I'm just going to loosely put in what looks like a little bit of a center to those flowers. Just a dark area. You could do it with straight blue if you wanted, or the blue and the magenta. I'll show you what both of those look like. Mixing them would be really pretty. So go ahead and put that. What that's going to do is it's going to establish that dark so that when we put the light on top, it'll really, really show. So that's the recesses of the flower. So here we're going to need some recesses. And it's still wet, so I can mix it a little bit as I'm tapping it in. I'm kind of blending a little bit. Might be some darks in here too. That's just going to give you more perspective. And I'm just going to tap in here and there. I'm going to tap in a little bit of that color. All right. And then I can see where I'd like a few more. I would like a few more lights, kind of the mediums and lights, a little bit more mediums lights. Before I get into too much detail, I can see on the monitor I'd like a little bit more of, I'm going to make a little more medium color, and I'm going to warm it up with a little bit of yellow, white. I'm just going to tap in a few more petals here, just where it got dark on me. Acrylics dry darker, so just be aware of that. So this is just giving me another color and lighting it up a bit for me. And lighter yet, I'm just going to add a lot of white over here. Up here so you can see it better. Just going to tap in some more lights. There's plum blossoms, there's cherry blossoms. This is supposed to be cherry blossoms, but there's a lot of different blossoms in spring. Start taking pictures and looking at them and studying them, because it helps your painting when you study by photographing or sketching. It'll just help your art more. Let's put a little more white in there. A little lighter here. I'm just going to clean up some places that I got maybe a little too dark on me. Just lighten it up a bit. There we go. All right, so there's some cherry blossoms. And now let's finish up with the detail brush. Go back to that detail brush. Go into a little bit of white. And again, I'm going to have to push out a little more. I want to make sure it's pure white. So go into, clean out the brush very, very well, and then go into clean water. And I'm going to try to find a spot on my palette where I can put just white. So the mixing white we're going to use. And this is really the very last step. This is our detail step. And you can't go whiter than white or lighter than white. So this is why I do this last. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to very carefully with the tip of my brush, I'm going to go into this middle section and make what the bees are so attracted to, the stamens. And I'm doing it very thick because my painting is still wet. And so it kind of wants to come off. So I'm putting this very thick on there. Just tapping in some areas. I'll come up real close to show you there. Can you see that? It just gives it a lot of life. So just put those into the middle of the flower. Not every flower is going to have this. Another way to do this is I'm going to wash that off and show you another option. Another way to do it is use the back of your brush and just get a little mixture of your white and then use the back. This is going to give you a lot rounder dot, but you could also tap it in that way. And you can get super perfect with this or just leave it real loose. It's entirely up to you. That's another style thing. Just these make them perfectly round. So if you like that look, I like it more organic, more messy, if you will, looser. So I use my brush. Just bracing myself and just tapping them in. You can do a few other dots outside the flowers as well. And that is pretty much done. Now I do want to add one more thing for you, just for fun. It's also nice to add a little bit of spatter with a toothbrush. So if you have an old toothbrush in your art bin, I have one that has a little bit taller bristles. I don't know if you can see that. Taller bristles at the end. And I grab onto those and I make spatter with them. So you want to make sure everything is covered before you do this. And you just dip it into a dark color. I'm going to go into my purple that I have here, still wet. You dip it in there, dip it in water, dip it in there. Maybe a little more water. You want it definitely a little bit more runny to do this. It's going to go into that purple. And then you just let her go. And it just looks really pretty, like a spray. So that's just optional. If you like that, go for it. You could also do that in white or both. So that's that. I probably could lighten it up a bit if I wanted to by adding a little more white or this lighter color. But I like it. I think it's really pretty. And I hope you like this project. If you want to frame it, there's lots of options at Michael's. And there they have some shadowbox frames that you can actually just glue this into, and it makes a perfectly finished looking painting at the end. And they're probably, you can get them on sale for $15 to $17. And it's absolutely gorgeous. It actually looks like a float frame. So consider framing your art and putting it up. Oh, and before I go, if you want to sign it, the brush that we were using for the detail is perfect for signing. So all you would do is water down a little paint. I'm going to just go into the darker color, maybe lighten it up a little bit with magenta. Go into that paint, and then perpendicular to your canvas. I always hold my breath when I'm writing with a brush, so I have to breathe. But all you do is just like your regular signature, just take it slow, and every stroke is a different load, pretty much, depending on how runny your paint is. And that is pretty much done. Unless you want to make sure that it's fade proof. And in that case, I would suggest that you get some kind of clear protector. Michael's also sells different products that you can use to finish off your painting. My background is painting murals, so I use this Valspar. It's for faux finishes and textural finishes. It is non-yellowing, and when you put it on acrylic, fading, because acrylics do fade. You may want to put a couple coats of that. And then the shadow box frame that I was suggesting earlier has glass. So you could also protect it that way, or you could use the shadow frame without glass. So it makes just a real. So here's what I'm talking about. Here's a shadow box frame. I've got a pug picture in there. This is an 8x10, so it would work for an 8x10 as well. But you can see I use the glass on this one, but all it is one of these wrapped canvases, and I put hot glue on the back. You could also use E6000, and then I just press it to the back. E6000 will probably give you a little more time to get it exactly where you want it. But the hot glue gun, if you know exactly where you want it, if you mark it, you just stick it on right after putting the hot glue gun on, and it just stays. So I don't know how long this stays. I've had this one probably for about 4 years in here. So it's actually a really economical way of framing your art. And I do suggest, even as a beginner, to frame your art. You can always take this off and put in the next art if you feel like you've improved, or if you get tired of this piece. So these last forever. And you could also spray paint these frames any color you want, or even paint them with these paints. So anyway, I hope you do this project, and I hope you get a lot of compliments on it, and I hope you continue painting. Come back and see me again on Tuesdays for the tutorials, my 7-step process. And then also on Fridays, I have those other projects that I do with craft paints and also these heavy body acrylics. So I hope you come back and see me. I'll go ahead and finish up my signature, and we'll meet again at another time, hopefully soon. Bye for now.